The planet Varkesh had always lived in fear. For generations, the people believed the Karul Dominion would one day return to take everything from them. Old stories said the Dominion never forgave, never stopped, and never showed mercy. Most young Varkesh citizens thought those stories were only warnings from the past. But on one cold morning, the sky of Varkesh turned dark, and everyone learned the stories were true. Huge black ships appeared without warning. They covered the sun and spread across the sky like a storm made of metal. The ground shook as the first ships broke through the atmosphere. Buildings trembled. Families ran into underground rooms. The Varkesh military tried to fight, but their weapons were too weak. The Dominion destroyed their bases in minutes. Fire and smoke filled the horizon. Inside the Varkesh Council Hall, leaders argued in fear. Some shouted for surrender. Others wanted to run. But the truth was simple. They had no hope. Their enemy was too strong, too fast, and too cruel. The Dominion broadcast a short message across all channels. You resisted us long ago. You will not resist again. The message ended there. No demands, no conditions. Only a promise of destruction. The council gathered around a small communication device. Only one question mattered. Who would help a weak planet like theirs? Most nearby species were too afraid of the Dominion. Nobody wanted to risk a war. A few leaders said they should try sending a message to the humans Terrans, but many rejected the idea instantly. Terrans had a strange reputation across the galaxy. People whispered that humans were emotional, chaotic, and dangerous. Many called them Terran monsters, not because they were evil, but because they were too unpredictable. Some species were scared of their bravery, some scared of their anger, and some scared of their kindness. But now Varkesh was out of time. Their main city fell in the afternoon. Families fled through streets full of ash. Soldiers tried to guide civilians, but most were wounded or overwhelmed. The Dominion marched forward without stopping. Their machines tore through defenses easily, and their aircraft circled above like hungry birds. In a small underground bunker, the Varkesh leader, Saelnir, made her decision. We send the message to the Terrans, she said. We send it now. Her assistants hesitated. But what if the rumors are true? One asked quietly. What if humans only make the war worse? One offer. Saelnir placed a hand on the communication panel. If we do nothing, we will lose everything. I will take that chance. She pressed the transmitter and began to record the message. Her voice shook, but she spoke clearly. To whoever hears this, we beg you for help. The Dominion is destroying our world. Our people are dying. Please, if you can, save us. When the message ended, Saelnir felt both hope and fear. She knew the humans might never answer. Maybe they would ignore a small planet like Varkesh. Maybe the rumors about their nature were wrong. Maybe nobody would come, but the message was sent. Far away, in Terran space, the signal traveled across the darkness of space, moving past abandoned stations, asteroid fields, and quiet colonies. After many hours, it reached Terran Defense Command, a giant structure orbiting Earth. Inside the main control center, officers scanned dozens of transmissions from all sectors. Most signals were routine, but the Varkesh message was not. Commander Elijah Ward stood in front of the large holographic screen. His face was calm, serious, and silent. Elijah had served in many wars. He had seen planets fall, seen families separated, and seen soldiers who tried to be brave, even when they were scared. He understood suffering better than most. When he watched the Varkesh message, he said nothing at first. He replayed it twice. He watched the burning streets behind Saelnir. He heard the fear in her voice. He saw injured civilians hiding behind her as she begged for help. The officers around Elijah waited for his reaction. One of them spoke carefully. Sir, this is outside our patrol zone. We are not required to respond. Elijah did not take his eyes off the screen. How many civilians? He asked. Reports estimate several million still alive, the officer answered. But the Dominion is famous for ending resistance quickly. If we delay, there might be no survivors. Elijah's jaw tightened slightly. The Terrans had a rule. Humans defend those who cannot defend themselves. It did not matter if someone was Terran or alien. It did not matter if the victim was strong or weak. If someone asked humans for help from the heart, humans answered. Elijah turned to his officers. "Prepare the fleets." Another officer blinked in surprise. "All of them, sir?" "Every ship that can launch in the next 4 hours," Elijah said. His voice was cold but steady. "We leave immediately." Orders spread across the command center. Red lights flashed. Pilots ran to their stations. Engineers rushed to arm weapon systems. The giant Terran dreadnoughts powered up, their engines glowing bright blue. The hangar floors shook as support platforms lifted massive armored carriers. In the middle of the chaos, a young Terran officer asked Elijah, "Sir, do we know anything about the Varkesh?" Elijah nodded. "They asked for help. That is enough." Back on Varkesh, the Dominion continued their advance. Their machines roared through destroyed neighborhoods, scanning for survivors. Some Varkesh civilians hid in old tunnels, listening to the sounds above explosions, engines, screams, collapsing structures. Parents hugged their children tightly, whispering empty reassurances. Soldiers tried to hold the last defensive line, but their numbers were too small. Sailnir stood on a damaged balcony, watching smoke rise from the center of the city. She wondered if the humans would come. She wondered if her message was too late. A distant rumble echoed across the sky. At first, everyone thought it was another Dominion ship arriving. But the sound grew deeper, stronger, like thunder rolling through space. Varkesh soldiers looked up. Civilians stepped out of shelters. Dominion commanders paused their advance. Then, the sky cracked open. A blinding blue tear sliced through the clouds, and something enormous emerged. Then another. And another. Dozens of shapes appeared, shapes wider than mountains, covered in thick armor, glowing with bright Terran engine light. Terran dreadnoughts, Terran destroyers, Terran carriers. Their formations spread across the atmosphere like a steel shield. The Varkesh people gasped, some in fear, some in shock, and some in hope. Nobody had ever seen this many human warships in a single operation. A Dominion officer shouted orders to retreat temporarily. Even they were surprised. Dominion scanners reported an unbelievable number of Terran ships, far more than expected. On the lead Terran flagship, Commander Elijah gave his first command of the mission. "All ships," he said calmly, "prepare for rapid ground and air operations. We engage immediately." His officers confirmed. "Yes, sir." The engines roared. The dreadnoughts moved like ancient beasts awakening for battle. Drop pods lined up for launch. Armored Terran soldiers stood ready with their heavy suits. Their visors glowed like cold blue fire. On Varkesh, one child whispered to her mother, "Mama, who are they?" Her mother answered with trembling hope, "I think." The humans heard us. As the first wave of Terran ships descended, the air shook with power. The Dominion prepared for a fight. But even they felt something new, something they had not felt in centuries: fear. Because the galaxy had once given humans a name spoken with caution, a name spoken with respect, a name whispered in fear by their enemies, the Terran monsters. And now, when the Terran fleets entered the sky of Varkesh, the entire planet felt the change. It was like a second sun had risen, not with warmth, but with power. The clouds shook, the ground trembled. Even the old mountains felt smaller under the shadow of the giant human warships. The Dominion forces were the first to react. Their commanders barked orders across the battlefield, shouting for defensive shields and weapon systems to activate. But deep inside their voices, there was something unusual: uncertainty. They had not expected humans to arrive this quickly or in such overwhelming numbers. Down on the scorched land, Varkesh soldiers watched in awe as Terran drop pods shot out from the dreadnoughts. The pods fell like bright comets, leaving white trails behind them. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands descended from the sky. Each pod carried one Terran soldier, sealed inside heavy armor that made them look like walking steel giants. As the pods crashed into the ground, the Dominion units opened fire. But the Terran armor absorbed most of the shots. When each pod door burst open, a human soldier stepped out calmly, like they were used to chaos. Their visors glowed blue. Their movements were smooth and sharp. One Varkesh soldier whispered, "Are they even alive inside those suits?" Another replied softly, "Maybe they are machines." But when one Terran soldier gently pushed a frightened Varkesh child behind him to safety, they understood. These were humans, just stronger than any story ever described. Commander Elijah Ward landed at the front line inside a special command pod. His armor was slightly different, marked with old scars from previous battles, each mark telling a silent story. When he stepped out, he scanned the battlefield quickly. Dominion mechs were approaching, firing energy beams. Terran soldiers had already formed a defensive wall, absorbing shots and returning fire with perfect accuracy. Elijah raised his voice through the comms. "Push forward. Keep civilians behind our line." The Terran units moved instantly. Their discipline was terrifying. They advanced in perfect formation, not one step out of sync. Their boots hit the ground like a single heartbeat. On the other side, Dominion warriors tried to adjust. They were known for their cruelty and confidence. They had crushed many worlds before. But today, something felt different. The humans did not look like a normal enemy. They looked like a force of nature. A Dominion captain shouted, "They are only biological creatures. Break their armor." But when his troops fired again, the Terran shields held strong. And when the humans responded, they responded with overwhelming force. Terran rail cannons fired from the sky, sending bright streaks across the battlefield. Each shot hit a Dominion vehicle with perfect accuracy, flipping entire armored units into the air. The Varkesh soldiers gasped every time a Dominion machine exploded. They had never seen such power, not even from the Dominion itself. A young Varkesh medic named Tyros hid behind a broken wall, helping wounded civilians. He looked up when Elijah approached his position with a group of Terran soldiers. "You," Elijah said, pointing toward the medic gently. "Get these civilians to the evacuation route. We will cover you." Tyros nodded nervously. "But the Dominion will fire on us." Elijah stepped in front of him, blocking a distant energy shot with his armor plate. The blast reflected off the suit like it had hit stone. He turned his visor toward Tyros. "Not while we're here." Tyros stared at him in disbelief. He had never seen someone stand so fearlessly in front of incoming fire. The battle grew louder. Terran aircraft flew overhead, taking down Dominion flyers with swift maneuvers. On the ground, Terran soldiers pushed deeper, breaking enemy lines faster than anyone believed possible. But the Dominion was not ready to give up. They brought out their heavy war machines, towering metal walkers with multiple cannons. Each step of the massive walkers created small earthquakes. Varkesh troops panicked, but the Terrans did not panic. Elijah contacted his air division. "Bring down the Titans." "Yes, sir." A moment later, 3 Terran gunships appeared, cutting through the smoke. They released precise bursts of energy that targeted the walkers' weak points. The giant Dominion machines stumbled, sparks flying from their joints. Then they collapsed completely. The Varkesh cheered as the walkers fell. Some shouted with joy. Some cried with relief. And some simply stared in disbelief. Who were these humans? Why did they fight with such cold confidence? Why did they protect strangers like family? The Dominion commanders grew desperate. They ordered all units to regroup and form a new defense line. But it was already too late. The Terrans were not stopping. They fought like an unstoppable storm. A Varkesh scout named Lyrisha watched from a rooftop. She saw Elijah lead his troops personally, walking through fire and smoke as if neither could hurt him. He pulled a trapped Varkesh woman from broken debris with one arm, then turned instantly to confront approaching Dominion soldiers. Lyrisha whispered, "He fights like a monster." But then she saw something else, Elijah shielding the rescued woman with his own body, taking the full blast of an enemy weapon without hesitation. A monster who protects. The battle stretched into the afternoon. Terran ships completely controlled the sky. The Dominion forces were pushed backward, mile by mile. For the first time, the Dominion troops were not shouting or threatening. They were confused. They were afraid. A Dominion lieutenant yelled in frustration, "Why are they advancing so fast? How can they fight without fear?" His superior responded quietly, "Because they are human. And humans are never more dangerous than when someone begs them for help." Back on the battlefield, Elijah received a report from his officers. "Sir, Dominion reinforcements are on the way. A whole division." Elijah nodded. "Then we meet them head-on." His officers exchanged glances. Most leaders would retreat at this news. But Terrans did not show fear. They did not hesitate. Retreating was not in their nature, not when innocent lives were behind them. Terran artillery units repositioned. Fighters refueled mid-air. More drop pods launched. The Dominion reinforcements arrived in a wave, firing from long range. The sky lit up with bright streaks of red and blue. The ground shook as new Dominion elites entered the battle, taller, stronger, enhanced genetically for combat. But the humans confronted them without stepping back. One Terran soldier, Soren Hale, stood in front of two Dominion elites alone. They towered over him. Their blades glowed with electric charge. Soren did not retreat. He waited for them to strike. When they attacked, he dodged and countered with precise, practiced movements. His armor amplified his strength. And with a powerful strike, he knocked one elite to the ground. A Varkesh civilian watching from a distance whispered in awe, "They are not monsters. They are something else." "8," another replied, "No, they are monsters, but the kind you want on your side." By evening, the battlefield belonged to the Terrans. Smoke rose in the distance. Dominion forces retreated with broken formations. Terran soldiers stood tall among rubble and burning vehicles. Civilians slowly came out of hiding, looking at their human rescuers with wide eyes. Elijah walked through the ruined streets, checking each group of survivors. His armor was scratched and burned, but he moved with calm certainty. Sailnir, the Varkesh leader, approached him with trembling hands. "You came for us," she said. "You truly came." Elijah nodded simply. "You asked for help." "That was enough." She bowed her head. "The rumors. The galaxy said humans were monsters." Elijah looked around at the rescued civilians. "Sometimes we are," he said quietly. "But not to the innocent." Behind him, Terran soldiers stood like guardians made of iron. To the Dominion, they were monsters. To the Varkesh, they were protectors. And the war had only just begun. After the first great battle, the smoke slowly faded from the sky of Varkesh. The sun returned. Weak but present, it shone across ruined buildings, broken streets, and scared civilians hiding behind walls. But for the first time since the Dominion attack began, there was also something else in the air. Hope. Terran soldiers walked carefully through destroyed neighborhoods, searching for survivors and giving medical help. Their large armored suits looked frightening at first, but the Varkesh soon noticed something surprising despite their size. The humans moved with gentle discipline around civilians. Some helped carry the injured. Some protected children from falling debris. Some shared food from their emergency packs. The rumors about humans being chaotic, wild, and uncontrollable suddenly felt strange. These soldiers were calm, focused, protective, but the Varkesh would soon learn the truth. Humans had two sides, calm protectors and unstoppable fighters, and the galaxy had forgotten this second side existed. A child in the ruins. Near the Western District, where old stone houses once stood, a young Varkesh girl named Leary wandered among the rubble. She was small, thin, and trembling. She had been separated from her family during the attack, and she did not know where to go. Smoke still rose from nearby buildings. The ground was warm from the recent battle. She hugged her arms to her chest and whispered, "Please." Suddenly, she heard heavy footsteps. She froze in fear. Dominion soldiers often patrolled abandoned areas, and she feared they had returned. But when the figure appeared, she saw glowing blue lights on armored shoulders, not red Dominion lights. It was a Terran soldier, Commander Elijah Ward himself. Leary stared at him with wide eyes. His armor looked giant compared to her small frame. His helmet reflected light like cold glass. Everything about him screamed danger and power. Elijah slowly knelt. His voice came through the suit, warm and calm. "Are you hurt?" Leary shook her head, still scared. "Are your parents nearby?" he asked. She shook her head again. Her eyes filled with tears. Without hesitation, Elijah removed one glove, showing a human hand scarred from old battles, but steady and gentle. He offered it to her. "Come. You are safe now." Leary hesitated, but only for a moment. Something in Elijah's voice felt protective. She took his hand. The moment she did, a Dominion scout drone appeared and shot toward them. It fired a bright red beam. Without thinking, Elijah turned his back to the drone, shielding Leary completely with his armored body. The blast hit him. It burned across his armor. And still, he did not move away. Leary gasped. "Doesn't it hurt?" Elijah stood up, keeping her behind him. "Not more than losing someone who needs help." He gave a signal through his comms. "Scout drone detected. Remove it." One Terran sharpshooter fired from afar. The drone exploded. Leary looked up at Elijah with new understanding. This human was powerful. Yes, but his strength was not cruel. It was protective. "Are you really monsters?" she whispered. Elijah looked toward the horizon where smoke rose from Dominion machines. "Only to those who hurt the innocent." The truth about Terrans. Across the planet, Varkesh survivors saw more examples of the Terran nature. In one place, Terran medics treated aliens they had never met before, learning Varkesh biology quickly and carefully. In another area, human engineers rebuilt damaged generators so civilians could have heat and light again. A group of Varkesh soldiers stood near a Terran supply truck, whispering among themselves. "I thought humans were reckless fighters," one said. "I thought they were unstable," another replied. A Terran sergeant overheard them. He smiled politely and said, "If we were unstable, we would not have saved so many worlds." The Varkesh soldiers were surprised by his calm confidence. They expected arrogance but got quiet strength instead. But the Dominion was not finished. Reports soon arrived that the enemy was regrouping at the northern wasteland. They were gathering hundreds of troops, heavy walkers, and aircraft. And worse, scouts confirmed they were preparing to activate a planet-killer weapon from orbit. When Elijah received the report, he tightened his gloves and looked at the holographic map. "If that weapon fires, Varkesh will not survive." His officers nodded grimly. Sael Nir, the Varkesh leader, approached him with worry in her eyes. "Can you stop it?" Elijah's expression did not change. "Yes." He said it not with pride, but with certainty. Saelnir watched him closely. "Why do you fight with such strength? You defend us like we are your own people." Elijah looked at the rescued children nearby. "Because once, long ago, humans also begged someone for help, and no one came. We do not allow others to feel that same pain." Saelnir felt a chill. She finally understood why the galaxy told fearful stories about humans. It was not because humans were violent by nature. It was because humans loved fiercely. Their loyalty was so intense, so sharp, that they became terrifying when defending the weak. She whispered, "The galaxy forgot what you are." Elijah answered quietly, "Then we will remind them." The Dominion strikes back. The northern wasteland grew dark as Dominion units moved into position. Their machines dug into the ground. Their flyers made circles in the sky. Their commanders shouted loudly, trying to rebuild their confidence. "The Terrans bleed like everyone else," a Dominion officer barked. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. The Terrans did not break easily. Every Dominion group that had faced them earlier had returned with fewer soldiers and shaken hearts. Still, the Dominion prepared their final move. Launch the super weapon that could destroy an entire planet. The weapon was in orbit, charging slowly, waiting for the right moment. Elijah prepared the Terran counterattack. He called for dropships, artillery support, mobile shield generators, and air escorts. Terran soldiers gathered around him, listening carefully. "We stop the Dominion now," Elijah said. "Not for glory, not for revenge. We stop them because these people called for help, and humans answer calls." The soldiers replied with a single firm nod. The Terran attack moved like a rolling storm. Dropships flew low, releasing human troops behind enemy lines. Tanks burst through the dusty ground, shaking the air. Terran jets struck Dominion aircraft before they even locked on targets. The battle was loud, fierce, and chaotic. Dominion warriors shouted, "Hold the line! Hold the—" But their voices cut off as Terran forces pushed forward with unstoppable momentum. Courage witnessed. Lyri, the young Varkesh girl, was safe inside a fortified Terran shelter. She sat next to a viewing screen showing map updates. She watched glowing blue Terran units advance against red Dominion forces. She hugged her blanket, whispering to herself, "Please let them win." At the same time, many Varkesh watched the battle unfold on emergency monitors. They saw humans charging through fire. They saw them pulling wounded Varkesh soldiers out of danger. They saw Terran pilots flying directly into Dominion fire to protect civilian transports. And slowly, the Varkesh realized something powerful. Humans did not fear death when protecting others. One Varkesh elder said quietly, "No wonder the Dominion fears them. No wonder the galaxy gave them such a name." Another elder replied, "They are monsters." Yes, but monsters who defend. The superweapon moves. High above the planet, the Dominion's planet killer ship activated its engines. It began turning toward Varkesh, ready to fire its devastating beam. Terran sensors detected it instantly. Elijah watched the hologram. The size of the weapon was enormous, larger than any Dominion ship seen before. His officer said, "Sir, if it fires, we cannot stop the damage." Elijah took a deep breath. "Then we board it before it fires." The officer blinked. "Board it, sir?" "Dangerous," Elijah finished. "Yes. But we do not leave tasks unfinished." He turned toward his elite soldiers. "Prepare the boarding teams." Varkesh watched the sky darken once again as the planet killer aligned for its final strike. Their hope rested on the Terrans, now on the monsters who came when they begged for mercy. And the final battle was about to begin. High above the burning surface of Varkesh, the Dominion's planet killer ship drifted into position. Its black hull sparkled with cold lights, and a deep red glow built at the center of its massive weapon core. The Dominion planned to wipe out the entire world in a single strike. Every Varkesh citizen watching the sky felt the same silent fear. Inside the Terran command center on the surface, alarms blared. Holographic screens displayed the charging sequence of the enemy weapon. Commander Elijah Ward stood in the center, armored, steady, and calm. Yet his eyes held a sharp light. "How long until the weapon fires?" he asked. 7 minutes, sir," an officer replied. The room grew heavy. 7 minutes to save an entire world. Elijah did not hesitate. "Prepare the boarding teams. We take that ship from the inside." His officers looked at him with a mix of trust and fear. Boarding a planet killer was nearly impossible. It would be defended by elite Dominion units, traps, and thick armor. Any mistake would mean death, but Elijah knew something simple. Terrans did not step back when innocent lives were behind them. He walked toward the dropship hangar. Soldiers followed him without question. Their armor gleamed with scratches from the earlier battles. Their faces were hidden behind visors, but their voices were steady. A young Terran pilot saluted him. "Sir, ready for launch." Elijah nodded. "Keep the ship stable, no matter what happens above." "Yes, sir." The boarding team entered the largest Terran assault shuttle, a heavily armored craft designed to pierce enemy hulls. Its engines roared as it rose from the ground, racing upward into the sky. On the surface, Varkesh civilians watched it ascend like a shooting star, climbing toward the darkness. Lyri, the young Varkesh girl Elijah saved earlier, watched from inside the Terran shelter. She placed her hand on the glass window. "Please come back," she whispered. The assault on the planet killer. The Dominion planet killer grew larger on the shuttle's screens. Its massive weapon core glowed brighter. Charging for the final strike, a Terran officer reported. "Sir, enemy ships are moving to intercept." Elijah looked at the Terran fleet behind them. "Fleet command, clear us a path." Terran dreadnoughts responded instantly. unleashing volleys of rail cannon fire. Explosions lit the blackness of space as Dominion cruisers broke apart. The shuttle shook from shockwaves, but it continued forward at full speed. The pilot shouted, "30 seconds to impact." Elijah stood near the door, one hand on the safety rail. His voice was calm. "Brace." The assault shuttle slammed into the planet killer's hull with a thunderous crack. The nose of the shuttle drilled through the thick armor, melting metal away. After seconds that felt like minutes, they broke through and entered the interior of the enemy ship. "Breach confirmed," the pilot yelled. Elijah hit the door release. The hatch exploded open. Terran soldiers stormed out first, firing controlled bursts. Dominion elite guards were waiting, their armor thick and their weapons sharp. The hallway lit up with flashes of energy as both sides clashed. A Dominion officer roared, "Hold them back! Do not let them reach the core!" But Terrans pushed forward with perfect formation. Each step was measured, every shot precise. They moved like a single living machine, unstoppable and silent, except for the steady rhythm of their boots. Elijah led at the front. His armor absorbed blasts that would kill any normal soldier. He fought with controlled force, never wasting movements, never hesitating. When the enemy tried to ambush his squad, he reacted like a storm, pushing them back with the strength of someone who refused to let fear exist in his heart. The deeper they went, the louder the ship hummed. The weapon core was almost fully charged. An officer checked readings. "Sir, 5 minutes until firing. Then we move faster," Elijah said. The heart of the monster. The boarding team reached a massive door guarded by Dominion elites larger, stronger, genetically enhanced for combat. Their armor glowed with red lines. Their eyes were full of hatred. One elite stepped forward. "Terrans, you cannot save these weak creatures. You fight for those who do not matter." Elijah leveled his weapon. "Everyone matters," the elite charged. The hallway exploded with noise as Terrans and Dominion elites collided. Elijah met the charging warrior head-on. Their clash shook the walls. The elite swung with enormous strength, but Elijah blocked the blow, pushed forward, and delivered a powerful strike that sent the enemy stumbling back. Terran soldiers overwhelmed the others with disciplined teamwork. When the last elite fell, the team breached the final door. Inside was the planet killer's core chamber, a massive sphere, glowing red, surrounded by humming machinery. The core pulsed like a beating heart. Data screens showed it was seconds from completing its charge. Elijah approached the control panel. "Shut it down," he commanded. His officer replied, "Sir, we cannot. It's locked." The Dominion sealed the system from the bridge. "Thanks. I'll see Intelligers first to into Skitter Market." The Dominion sealed the system. 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 Elijah looked at the core, his face hidden behind his visor. He understood instantly what must be done. "We overload it manually." The officer stared. "Sir, that will cause a chain reaction. The ship will explode." "Yes," Elijah said. "But it will save the planet." The officer swallowed hard. "Understood." The team set charges around the core, connecting them to the overloaded circuits. The chamber shook as sparks flew. Klaxons blared across the ship. Tremors rattled the corridors. A Terran soldier shouted, "Sir, we must leave now." Elijah didn't move. He continued adjusting the final settings on the control console. "Sir," the soldier repeated. Elijah finally turned. "Go. Get back to the shuttle." "What about you?" the soldier asked. "I will trigger the overload manually. It must be done from here." The team fell silent. They knew the meaning of his words. Elijah stood straight and firm. "You have your orders." The Terran soldiers saluted him one final, silent show of respect before running back down the hallway. When the chamber was empty, Elijah opened a comlink to the Terran fleet. "This is Commander Ward. The weapon will be disabled. Prepare for ship destruction." The officer on the other end hesitated. "Sir, are you?" But Elijah cut the link. He placed his hand on the final switch. He thought of Leary, of the Varkesh people hiding in fear, of the message that begged for help. He whispered softly, "You are safe now." Then he activated the overload. The collapse of the Dominion weapon, the planet-killer ship shook violently. Cracks spread across its gigantic hull. Light burst from its seams as the core consumed itself. Terran ships pulled back quickly. On Varkesh, civilians pointed upward, watching the black shape in the sky break apart. Sailnir whispered, "Is this the end?" The ship erupted in a massive explosion, bright, silent, and beautiful. It lit the entire sky. The Dominion's greatest weapon was gone. Every Varkesh citizen felt shock, awe, and overwhelming relief. Children cried, families embraced, soldiers dropped to their knees in gratitude. But Leary watched with trembling hands. Her voice was small. "Where is Commander Elijah, the monster who saved them?" Hours later, Terran rescue crews scanned the debris field. They found escape pods, broken weapons, and shattered metal, but then something unexpected appeared on their sensors. A life signal. A Terran shuttle raced to the source. Inside a chunk of broken hull, they found a sealed emergency chamber. When they opened it, a heavily damaged armored figure fell forward. It was Elijah, barely conscious, armor cracked, but alive. The ship crew lifted him in silence, their hearts heavy with respect. When news spread across Varkesh that Elijah lived, cheers erupted everywhere. Leary rushed out of the shelter when the Terran medics brought him back. She grabbed his hand gently. "You came back," she whispered. Elijah opened his eyes slowly and managed a small smile. "I promised you were safe." Sailnir approached him and bowed deeply. "Our planet lives because of you. And your people." Elijah shook his head. "Because of us. Together." The legend that spread. After the Dominion retreated completely, the galaxy received the news. The Terran monsters came when Varkesh begged for mercy and saved the entire world. But the galaxy also learned the truth. Humans were only monsters, to those who harmed the innocent. To everyone else, they were protectors, guardians, a force that answered cries for help no matter how far the distance. Varkesh rebuilt under Terran protection. And in every home, every school, every council hall, one story was told again and again. When we begged for mercy, the humans came, and nothing in the galaxy ever dared forget that again.